starting to eat breakfast because I usually only ate one meal a day because of my ADD and like my ability to just be like hyper focused and ignore
Yeah.
my human needs. But I found when I started eating breakfast, I felt more like a human and less like an animal that was designed to like pounce on RFPs and nonsense that was getting thrown at my face. Really softened my whole fight or flight experience in the morning. And it's allowed me to at least slow down enough to either then think about exercising or treating myself a little bit more nicely or like reading or meditating instead of just like diving in and finishing 200 emails before, I say good morning to my kids. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm less productive, but I feel a bit better. And
All from breakfast? Holy cow. What have we been missing? You're solving so many existential problems with just a meal at the beginning of the day.
but it's the
Amazing.
time you have to make though, right, Max? Like, how can you use
Well,
like 25?
do you like eat cereal or do you make yourself a frittata? I bet you're a
No,
frittata guy.
I don't make myself a frittata. I do try to eat oatmeal or yogurt or something that's not very
Oh
hard to
my
put
God.
together real
Ah,
quickly.
jeez. You're turning into like Gwyneth Paltrow.
No, I'm just an old man that has digestive issues. And this is the kind of
Oh.
thing that you get from eating outrageous things for 50
Yo,
years.
if anything goes on the socials, it should be that clip.
This is what you get for hosting events around the world for 47 years. What do you want me to tell you? I
Well,
can only,
like ulcers and bad digestion.
yeah, diverticulitis or whatever they call it. You know what I mean? My body's just like, what are you're eating more steak? This is a terrible idea. And I'm like, but I had broccoli too. And they're like, too bad.
How
You
does
know what I
that
mean?
play into, not to bring work into it, I'm sure we'll bring work into it. How does that play into the 100 course meal that you put on all the time? Do you look at it and you just go, oh my God, this is like PTSD?
I love food. I would say the 100 course meal was specifically designed for that for everybody, right? When you walked into the room at the 100 course meal, the 50-meter long table or 153 foot, whatever it is, when you look at that fucking thing, right? It was designed to make you go, holy shit, what did I get myself into? I was wrong. I thought I was going to eat 100 courses of food. That's not a real thing. I'm surfing on somebody else's world, right? The 100 course meal was always about this idea like if you went to a food festival, it was always clear that you were there to be a guest, right? You weren't there to like do everything. They were going to perform. There were people showing you how to cook. The celebrity chefs were doing all this stuff. When I said 100 course meal, people thought that they could eat it. And by putting that huge table in the middle of the room, it made it back into a performance, right? They realized the scope of it was too big and that they were now watching a culinary ballet, right? And they were going to get to participate in a little bit more like Queen of the Night or Sleep No More, if that's a better reference. But they weren't going to sit down and eat 100 courses of food because that's stupid. And it was purposely stupid.
Well, I mean, it was ahead of its time. And I know that you bring up Sleep No More, which I think was acquired like a year ago. I think something happened with them.
I can't tell if they did fantastically or if they did terribly in the deal, but it does seem like Punch Drunk, the organization that
That's what
launched,
it is. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, that was able to either recapitalize or was able to open up a couple more operations at the same time. I think that Sleep No More was a fantastic utilization of both real estate and immersive experience design, taking an underutilized part of the city and literally taking over an entire building that was fallow for decades and making it into a cultural centerpiece for a fraction of the cost of turning it into condos or making it into
Hmm.
some apartment building or whatever. And it generated so much gravity for that neighborhood that it radically shifted that area and allowed for the High Line to easily be passed as well. You know what I mean? And those things started shifting that part of Chelsea and the West Side Highway. I would say that Queen of the Night, though, was a more interesting performance for me because it was way more interactive. And Nathan Koch, one of the guys that helped design it, like the idea of the tables having to get up, right? I don't know if you know this, but like your table would get a platter of lobsters and my table would get a platter of French fries and somebody else would get 12 bottles of champagne, right? And the idea here was that the social interactions and the performance were all designed to get people to mix up and meet each other and to create new dynamics. Sleep No More was voyeurism, which was really awesome, you know what I mean? But like that second type of experience, once you've got that permission, man, I want to walk across the room and be like, here's a fucking lobster. Let me get a couple of steaks. What the fuck's your name? You know what I mean? That seems interesting to me. And it's definitely a very New York energy. So I don't know.
Speaking of New York energy, I'm just curious. Let's add one more to the mix into this triumvirate, and then I would love to see if there's like a future-facing answer to what you think is cooler, better, more interesting, etc. But I think the progenitor to all of that was Tony and Tina's wedding. And I don't know if you ever saw it, like, right? So like
No, I've never, but I do get it. Yeah.
yeah, you know what it is, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just curious, like, because there's two ways of looking at this, right? The first is probably the more germane way of looking at it is this IP rejuvenated an area or became a cornerstone to other experiences adjacent to it, or sometimes, like in the sense of the High Line, is superseding it, right? It's a good canary in the coal mine in terms of a real estate play, a development in real estate play. That's one. And the other is like various ways of immersion, people-led, character-led, actor-led immersion. And I'm just curious, like, what that points to, because
yeah. Oh, please go finish.
yeah,
No, please finish. I
no,
apologize.
you finish. No, you finish. And before you start, allow me to compliment you on the use of the word fallow. Proceed.
So, like, for me, to your first point, the idea of a supper club or dinner theater is not new, is pretty much been around in the Western world since the Middle Ages. In China, it's got ancient, in India, ancient kind of history where you had these grand feasts and there was entertainment and interaction, and sometimes it was interactive and sometimes it was performative, right? But as we became more present, I believe in the 70s and 80s, there was a shift away from home cooking to restaurant celebrations. 40s, 50s, 60s generations, people celebrated at home. Weddings were held at home. In the 70s and 80s, there was this globalization shift that happened in the US that had people celebrating out more. Marketing people did this, right? General Mills opening up the Olive Garden took advantage of this. Brands seeing how this worked and started bringing kids into play in the ground round and have your fucking birthday party here kind of thing, shifted the energy from celebrating again at home to out, right? By the time I got to college in the year 1997 or whatever it was, I became enamored with food because I hadn't really been in the kitchen as much as I'd anticipated in my life, having come from a large Italian family. And I think we started seeing an evolution from the year 2000 till today where the process of entertaining at home has become more valuable in the American culture. The process of celebrating the preparation of the food as a point of socialization was something that drove me at the beginning of my career, right? How do I invite people over to cook, not eat, right? Now, cooking is what I did with my grandma. I would go to my grandma's house on a Sunday, place of hospitality, and I would learn from her. I would tell her about my life. We would connect socially over the act of creation, not the act of consumption, which is what we fucked up in the 70s and 80s. We again thought the most valuable part was the
Damn,
consumption.
son. Damn, like dropping bombs. Keep going, baby.
I appreciate you. So this idea of immersing people in a dining experience that allows it to be playful and thoughtful, murder mystery dinners, Tony and Tina's wedding, right? These are the kinds of things that I think we do as marketers. Right now, I'll give you an RFP. Champagne brand or luxury automobile wants to have a dinner for high net worth people at Art Basel. Same fucking thing as Tony and Tina's wedding, right? There's a bunch of set design in the room. There's a bunch of actors in the room. There's a bunch of narrative journey and shit like that. We pretend that experiential marketing isn't theater for some reason. We pretend that reality TV isn't scripted for some reason, right? These things are orchestrated to deliver very specific communications, emotional journeys, all that shit. I spent my whole career making tiny versions of Tony and Tina's wedding or whatever it is, or medieval times, if you want to call it that, because
Mm.
I saw this way of connecting human beings around a table that would better deliver either the brand's message, the artist's message, or the creative message across the whole platform because it allowed for conversation and not just me to talk at them. It allowed for collaboration and creation instead of just consumption, right? And again, I don't know how that goes forward, but I think that people are starting to think of luxury more as this ability to create and express myself inside the process instead of just leave with a handbag or have the painting on the wall. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And the notion of consumer behavior change and brand behavior change, that's really where the question lies. Because just by significantly altering the reason or the why of an experience from consumption to creation is a fundamental shift in how actually brands think about their place in the kind of like spectrum between creation and consumption and destruction or whatever. And it's super interesting to kind of equate B2B hospitality with theater. And I'll tell you why. It's both interesting and it kind of like gives me the willies a little bit, quite frankly, because I don't think the experiential industry needs more woo-woo. Like it doesn't need more explanation around the feelings you get when you go to a theater and the equivalency of that. And we can metaphorize it, but I don't think there's a place to maybe borrow, but it's certainly not the same thing. Like I read so much about steps to take to build community or what makes a great meeting, right? Or how do you create shared vibes to mind meld into a common consciousness? There's like all this I wouldn't call it research, but I would call it like attempts to approach experiential marketing from kind of what you're saying, right? There's an ability to create community beyond collaboration. I would call it like even movements when you sort of experience design a meeting, or you just experience design a gathering, or you experience design a shared thing that a lot of people do. And I'm just like, I don't know how I can go to a CMO and sell that. Do you know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
I do.
yeah,
I
so
also think that the woo-woo isn't necessarily there if we don't want it, but it is there if we want to execute with intention. And I think something that is happening inside experiential marketing is this desire to stay as ad people and to not be entertainers. I'm really sorry for everybody who got into this industry thinking that they could write ads the whole rest of their life and have that be okay. You can't do it anymore, man. You have to now become entertainment. If you're going to run an experiential shop, it needs to be a creative studio that makes theater, immersive experience design, theme parks, because nobody cares if you're going to do a bunch of vinyl ads and they can walk by on a street short. That is table stakes. In the same way that I expect my bank to not lose my money when I put it in my savings account, like I don't expect them to give me an airport lounge because I have enough money in that bank account that they want to make sure that I keep it there, right? This is the evolution beyond the foundational principles to get to where the market currently is. And I think if a brand came to us, like let's just say Nike for a second, right? Nike understands that it has a brand that needs to be customized and created with its audience. So it has all these unique drops. There's a $30,000 dunks because somebody put two different colors on the dunk that nobody else had put on before, and they only made five of them, right? So
mhm.
there's that type of creation. But Nike also knows that if you buy their shoes to run marathons and you're coming to the London Marathon, they can help you customize your performance and help you as an individual, not as a pro athlete, but as a Nike buyer, have this better physical experience and customize your world by creating a hotel because you're a Nike runner, right? And that kind of delivery allows them to have a bigger connection with their audience. It allows them to customize different versions of both the experience and then the artifact that comes out of it. The artifact out of the dunk is, oh, I got my custom dunks and they're the only ones that look like this. The artifact that comes out of going to the Nike hotel when I'm in London for the marathon is that my performance might have been better. My opinion of my performance might have been better. I might have had support that I wouldn't have had, taping up my ankles, my knee, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff leads to me to be like, shit, I'm more proud of the work I put into this and the work I got out of it. And maybe Nike was valuable for it. But if we're not thinking of it as that kind of thing, and we're just thinking as a place where we can have a bunch of gobos with the word Nike shining on the side of a building, like it's not going to deliver it in the same way because the audience expects it to feel more like the hotel.
Ah, maybe it's the coffee kicking in. I'm a little bit more cynical. Let's use the Nike example, right? Like what you just described is a very personal explanation to why a Nike hotel or a customized experience at the marathon makes sense for the brand. You haven't given me a business case. And beyond the business case, I would probably say, let's just call it like a share price case of why that would make sense. Because what you just kind of described would be a pitch for a VP at Nike trying to land some investment. I want experiential pitches to the CEO and the CMO of why the risk to reward of sinking millions and millions of dollars will increase share price, not your memory of Nike. And you have to remember that the majority of Nike's money is socks. It's not shoes. It's licensing the logo on a jersey.
Like, so I would even say better than the things that I'm talking about are core brand value investments that allow for the symbol and the logo to retain its premium status across all markets and all licensings.
Cool, very soft. I love it. Soft KPIs.
Yeah,
it's like it's soft KPIs. Got it. So I'm looking for a world where experiential marketing has the exact same hard KPIs as digital.
Why?
Or a Super Bowl spot.
Why do we have to have that? Digital does not actually deliver on those hard KPIs. We've proven that. They think that they're there, but it's a bunch of marketing people talking about marketing stuff.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So let's remember, I think this was like maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago. P&G stopped all digital marketing for, I believe, a quarter. And nothing changed. And so everyone, wait, hold on.
Unsurprising.
Here's my point. Nothing changed. And there were some headlines around that. And they're like, oh, cool. To your exact point, maybe brands and CEOs and CIOs and CMOs and CTOs should take a look at our digital spend and stacks and get like a little bit more clarity of where our money is going. That happened. And then the next quarter, P&G turned on their digital marketing, and they continue to market digitally right now. So you can't tell me that like the smartest MBAs in the room who totally had a use case of not using digital marketing, who are now using digital marketing, that it doesn't do something. It might not do something for you or for the culture, for market, but it certainly does something for the CEO, the CMO, the CTO, the CIO.
I agree with you, just in the same way that radio and television and all of these different formats do stuff. I just don't think that retargeted digital ads are going to be the future of participation in the global economy, nor do I think they are the solution that technology has sold us in this desire to like literally take as much information as possible and be able to transfer it to marketers. I think it's a very good idea. I think having it as part of your mix is important. But what I think we're looking for is for the brands that need to stand out, they need to entertain their audience first and foremost and not market to them. And the core difference there is providing value first or asking for value first. And I think this is where we're at as a civilization. Yes, Windex versus another cleaning product has to remind us that we both exist and there should be some space for that kind of digital ad space for brand awareness, all that kind of stuff. But those are not brands that need to entertain us, right? Unless they want to pull a fucking Red Bull or something where they come out of market and be like, we're just going to spend all of this money on marketing so that we own an audience's share of voice, right? Again, I don't think everybody needs to do that, but the ones who do need to start thinking about it like this and not like marketing is what I'm saying, right? The brands where entertainment becomes valuable, it's not a soft thing up at the CEO level. It's how is our brand differentiating ourselves consistently and creating a North Star that people want to invest their time and energy in and their attention hand over hand over hand. And digital ads not going to give that to us.
Amazing. Look, I am not disagreeing with you. And there's no way in hell that I would say that I would put my money on marketing versus entertainment. Of course, it's always entertainment. I'm not discounting that. What I'm saying is everything that you're saying is what's in the upfront of a deck. We're missing the end part of the deck, which is how much it costs, what the ROI to it is, what the long-term halo effect of this is, what are the partnerships, all that stuff at the end is what I'm saying needs to be developed for this industry. And I'm not talking about production P&Ls or you know, like scopes or anything like that. I'm talking about like legit modeling out of entertainment leading to sales, to whatever, like not brand equity. Because I'll tell you why brand equity has changed from 2 to 3 months ago, is because an agent doesn't care about your brand equity. Your agent doesn't care about shared memory. Your agent doesn't care that your logo showed up third in the rotation of the first time out in the Super Bowl. It does not care. So why are we talking about things that won't be measured, nor discovered, nor, I don't know, like, you know, contemplated 100%. In the same way that we're talking about it now, 6 months from now? Well, maybe not 6 months. Definitely 4 years from now.
18 months. Yeah. So I would say to your exact point, I think all that stuff at the front of the deck is what allows the agent to comb through the internet and discover these real moments that really impact passionate audiences that you want to drive towards. I think that those KPIs and defining them and figuring out how you're going to communicate those things repeatedly over and over again in a way that the agent has to absorb, but also how general culture has to absorb, because agents will then follow general culture. And I will say, you can do this right now with Instagram, right? I started to ski as we were talking earlier, and all of a sudden my algorithm changed to skiing stuff. And now it is up to me to change that AI agent that is listening to me so that it better responds to my needs for skiing. But I'm still trying to be entertained while it's offering me marketing, but it's built by...
No, I mean, look, again, this is the long tail part that I'm talking about. Like, yeah, you do a great brand entertainment experience that gets people to talk about it on Reddit. Like, oh my God, I just came back and checked this. I was fucking amazed. All right. And then that gets a bunch of likes. They were like, I was there too. I can't believe Nike has a hotel. That's dope, right? You hope that that will then be attributable context training to, oh, this is a source that I could trust and I can go back to and develop that. Okay, but give me a second. And this is more of like a provocation and whatnot, right? If brands or experience marketing is going to move into like entertainment, using your words, there's bad entertainment and there's good entertainment. There's a bad experience and a good experience. So like theater has theater critics, right? Film has film critics, TV has TV critics, even
I mean,
the
you and I
web
are
has
outspoken that
critics.
there's not experiential awards or critics that actually talk about it in the same way, but I'm hearing you. I understand where you're
The
going.
provocation is no one will care about, because of the agentic future, no one will care
Hmm.
about experiential marketing unless there is a consistent criticism of it
Yes.
for agents to weigh in and weigh their options.
Yes.
Because if there isn't that, then everything looks the fucking same to them. Right?
So I
Because going back, we don't have hard KPIs. Because
totally.
it could scrape a bunch of, Nielsen data if it wants to measure TV effectiveness, and it could definitely scrape top 20 ad meter rankings from USA Today and Ad Week to tell you whether like the brand is successful or not. But it can't do that for experiential right now.
And I would say it's a matter of how much data do we want to feed into these things for us to lose our privacy, for us to be able to gather this information for marketing purposes. Because, like, you could know how many physical cell phone IP addresses are moving in and out of a building during an F1 event, right? We can track the number of Wi Fi places, how people move, how they attach themselves. There's generally things that can be done uniformly
It's
well.
beyond that. We could eye sense, we could body
Yeah,
heat
all that
sense,
shit.
we could
Again,
heartbeat sense, we could sense whatever we want.
yeah, and again, I think though that the bit for that though is like, do we need that as marketers to know whether or not it was a successful event or not, or do we just want that as people who have been trained by data technology builders to get as far deep into the weeds of human data collection as possible to really understand what's going on here? When we know what's going on, is people go to places that they're going to be entertained and be entertained consistently, and we used to get that entertainment from places that provided entertainment, sponsored by brands that didn't. You used to go to TV, brought to you by General Mills. And now those two things, because of channel distribution, have been completely eliminated. In the same way that countries and companies are trying to be eliminated by certain types of government, right? This idea of us organizing people and thoughts behind stuff and passionate audiences is the way it is going. So if I want to have my automobile brand be aware by this passionate audience, whether it be them as human beings or them as agentic people, we have to create meaningful human experiences. Those human experiences have to be critiqued positively, negatively by the people who went, didn't go, thought about it, why it impacted the things, how it captured their attention, all that shit. I personally think that the need for humans to also differentiate themselves on platforms like LinkedIn is going to be where a lot of this criticism comes in from a marketing side. Talking about campaigns, their effectiveness to capture attention, even if you're not there, is going to be part of what this is going to be going back and forth with. And there's a couple of brands that are fantastic at this, right? I hosted a 20-person event and they got 300 million fucking exposures. That's fantastic. That is the same KPI we're talking about in this world as having 3,000 people over and getting 3 million exposures. A 3,000 person event, though, costs a lot more. You see what I'm saying? So it's like where we get to this final solution, I think still goes back to the how does it get to the cultural zeitgeist? How does that zeitgeist talk about it and critique it in your way, positive or negative, so that it can be future discovered and connected to it? It's passion based. It's not going to be data based again.
First of all, I don't think you could use final solution and a German word like Zeitgeist in the same sentence. I think we're
Very good.
beyond that now.
Really, really, really good language. I mean, that's terrible, and I'm really sorry for doing that. It's not funny at all.
All
I'm gonna
right.
be honest. It's
No, I'm
crazy
kidding. I'm kidding.
that I said that out loud. I apologize.
I'm kidding. Look, this is a great car. Everything you say, I'm in agreement with. Everything you say, I'm in agreement with. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like how much the CEO and the CMO catches up to that fact, and the time between that catch up is really a lot shorter than anyone thinks. And if you don't catch it at the right time or in a timely manner, then I do think, and I'm not being too cynical, but I do think that agentic search is a massive disruption to how a brand actually participates. There's another circle in the Venn, so to speak, that a lot of brands need to do. And I'm in 100% agreement because everyone on LinkedIn also agrees that the antidote to that is live experiences. The antidote is community building. The antidote is meaningful human connections. And the size of it, whether it's 30 or 30,000, is, I'm not going to say irrelevant. The intention has to drive the size, not the sort of like the output of what you're trying to do, right? Like it's the input now that creates a little bit of the nuts and bolts decision making, especially in the B2B space. You design for the outputs.
Yeah.
Right? You design for, like you were saying, throughput, PII collection, top of funnel, all that stuff. But now we're designing for intention rather than output, which is completely different. And I think
Different superlatives, right?
to your earlier point, like I think for those people in the experiential industry who think that their job is to design the outputs, headlines, materiality, vendor selection, AV, lighting, like the outputs, what they think their job is to like sweat those details. It's now becoming, you got to sweat the intention detail.
Yeah, how it feels.
Yeah, I think the lever of emotionality has risen, whereas maybe at the top it was potentially like awareness, right? Or throughput or whatever. But I think now emotionality, and I hate to admit that a soft KPI can rise to the top, but it seems like a soft KPI, like a sense of belonging, is becoming just as important as 10,000 people a day.
And then to this exact point, what we are looking at is the need to re-extend timelines for brand engagement beyond the quarter, beyond the year, and have multi-year campaigns. Like we cannot engage with an audience and have KPIs.
Well, that's IP. You're talking about the same in the same vein of becoming an entertainment brand is much like a Hollywood studio. You buy and develop and monetize IP.
Yep. And we don't need to
what you're saying is traditionally a brand would be considered IP, but I think now the brand experience is the IP and the brand is secondary.
If we look at it in a couple different ways, Ralph Lauren has had a polo club for a long time. Now they have a coffee shop. The coffee shop is an independent brand experience from the polo and from the store. They sometimes appear together, they sometimes don't. Each one of those hospitality moments, though, creates an echo effect inside the notoriety of the brand that reinforces it. Lacoste is doing this right now with their pop-up cafes all over the world. These are experiential marketing moments that take their brand, bring it to life, and make it feel four-dimensional. Not just, hey, we're clothing and we're sports. We're clothing, we're sports, and we're things you do next to clothing and sports, and we're the feeling that you get for posting those things online because you came out of your way for a thing you cared about, tennis, in a place that's unique, right? The top of a mountain in Switzerland, and had our coffee. And the whole experience as you as a consumer was awesome. But then that critique of that thing, right? And if that happens year over year, I come to expect Lacoste to do 6 pop-ups a year in crazy places for their cafe. That's a fucking brand investment in themselves, in how their brand appears to people in the exact same way as being like, we're going to go to Wimbledon for the next 5 years. It should be part of the same mix. And it should be on the table when we're talking to the C-suite to say, how do we raise awareness of our brand and make sure that we meet our North Star goals and clearly define them? Because if we're not intentional about who we are and what we're doing, our audience isn't going to know. So again, the soft part of the deck, the intentionality and North Star of the brand is the most important thing in the marketing. Reversing that over the next 3 years, engineering it into a bunch of KPIs that we can then measure would be my approach to this. Let's start with the soft side, figure out the right hard data to go to, but we have to be more like the BBC and make a whole season of TV shows instead of a pilot and see if people like it. Maybe we cancel it after 3 episodes. Be like, let's give the writers a minute to fucking get this thing going. Let's give the creative department a minute to play with this idea of this brand and create copy. Wendy's social media took a year to progress. Now it's phenomenal. And that kind of space to give a brand a voice over an extended period of time is what I think is part of what I'm trying to say about entertainment, and will get us into a place those KPIs that you're looking for can be set over that longer period of time, and you'll be able to see trends and stuff like that because we're putting the effort into the audience and not just into our quarterly reports, if that makes sense.
It does. Out of all the topics that we talked about today, this is the most cynical one for me. I don't think you'll ever get away from quarterly. I think it's going to be the opposite what you're trying to achieve, actually, or it's the acceleration that AI presents in terms of predictive analytics and data crunching and the efficiencies and optimizations that you're going to see. I think there's going to be a monthly reporting schedule that a bunch of CEOs are going to want.
Is it going to be helpful to the market, though? And is it going to be helpful to lay investors? Is it going to be helpful to?
No, of course not. It's going to be.
Then we should do it.
It's going to be helpful.
We should stop it.
You and me. Yeah, I'll start drawing the signs up.
Listen, if we talk about digital ads, do we need interstitial video advertising inside digital print media? No, but we have it. We have to have it now because somebody invested.
No, you do because you want to put food on the table of journalists.
Exactly. And
that's what you do.
And having that video load in the middle there is the way that happens, right?
That's right.
But again,
that's correct.
100%. So that feedback loop exists now in a format. We can choose to have that format change. We can choose to say these revenues and this attention based model can modify to fit the future technology or the future way that we want to interact. I do think, though, that if we're talking about monthly reporting, sure, the CEO wants that, but is it going to actually change the decisions that we make? Because the decisions we make at that soft level should be slower decisions.
It's
They
going to
shouldn't be
change
tactical.
it's
You know
going
what
to
I mean?
change the decisions agents make.
Ah, okay. That is
It,
the
it,
cynical part. Yeah, I hear you.
yeah,
Yeah, I got
that's
you.
what I'm telling
Yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I appreciate how cynical that got there with the robots making all the decisions and the humans being cut out of it. Maybe
Well,
that'll let us see
I wouldn't
more.
say
Yeah.
I wouldn't say entirely cut out of it, but I'm saying the models and the modeling of how you report will be agentically sort of like the intention would be for agents, not for the CEO.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that the intention has to be for the audience. And again, that's just my philosophy for all this. I'm always brought into these conversations to make the brand connect with the audience and not sell to the brand. So you're definitely giving me an education right now of what is important to get that yes at that global level and to also understand what their needs are to solve them. Because again, my focus is being like, that's already been decided. How do we win these people over to spend their attention with us as the people? And again, I'm downstream from you. So this is a really interesting thing. And I appreciate you talking to me about it.
Thanks. I mean, you and I both read newspapers. Look, at no point in my time in my career have I been more bullish on experiential marketing. And I'm old as fuck,
Yeah.
right?
We
And
are old
at
people.
no time have I been more bullish. And why? Because it's the yin yang effect of the more digital, the more physical. Like the more slop and optimization and efficiency and chrome, we're going to want texture and wabi sabi and surprise rather than predictability. So, like, all of that is perfectly positioned petri dish of experiences being a major component to just conversation and culture. The
100%.
way that films are, the way that whatever. And if brands want to be associated with that, the way that Leonardo DiCaprio or Paul Thomas Anderson is associated with an Oscar winning film, that's what we're really talking about, right? It's like the conversation around experiences will become marketing. Because no one, to your point, no one talks about a digital ad they saw. No one.
100%.
Okay.
And I would say, though, to that point, the brands don't necessarily have to become Leo or Paul Thomas Anderson, but they can become Warner Brothers or Guillermo del Toro. And I think that that is
Wait. Okay, so this is where you and I are like you can't be both, right? So either you're a hard KPI with a revenue driving intention like a movie studio,
mhm.
or you're a soft KPI like brand equity and awareness like Leonardo DiCaprio.
So I get what you're saying. Again, I think that as this gray area goes, brands employ Leonardo DiCaprio and sports people and characters to tell their story in the same way that filmmakers deploy the characters. The brands themselves, I don't think, are the actual entertain. Like Nike isn't the end goal. It's Nike's facilitation of other human beings, right? And I think that this idea that Nike has to be Leo is not what Nike really needs over the long term. Nike needs to be seen as Warner Brothers for their audience. The stuff that Nike makes enables their audience to connect with their passion, with their products, and with their community. And I think that that kind of thing could be done by a record label, could be done by a movie studio if they had a clear North Star and soft KPIs.
Nike needs to survive and Nike needs to make money. Whether they do it with Leo or whether they do it as Paramount, it doesn't matter. Everyone is going to need to survive and everyone is going to need to make money. Because, quite frankly, the most cynical thing is if there's mass unemployment and no universal basic income, no one is buying Nikes. No one's
The whole
buying
world
Nike
then.
socks. All of that kind of goes away in the sense that if I was to kind of like mind read or listen in between the sentences to the C-level suite and what they're thinking about, it's between the lines is survival. And then right with that, like almost immediately is holy shit, we can grow. So
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine anyone who runs like large organizations at the moment faced with transformative technological, social, and economic change is probably, their sphincter is a little bit puckered up, but at the same time they're going, oh my God, the playing field has completely changed. If I'm a challenger, I'm a much more hardcore challenger. If I'm the dominant player, I am much more dominant. It's such a weird, tale of two cities all at once where you're like, will I have a customer base in 3 years? And will I be the dominant player?
I mean,
Like
like
it's
Taco
like
Bell
wild, right?
won the
It's
restaurant.
so fucking
Yeah.
cool.
Like, do you remember that? I think it was like the Sylvester Stallone movie from like the 90s where like Taco Bell won the restaurant wars. And as like a made feature in the movie, Taco Bell was featured, right? So it was clearly a paid advertisement that was inserted into this movie. But they clearly, as filmmakers, were like, you know, it'd be crazy if we built the best restaurant in the world in the future, won this war between, and then we can go to each of them and be like, do you want it to be KFC? Do you want it to be Taco Bell? And they got probably millions of bucks for that thing. But it's still an awesome and entertaining thing, right? But like, yeah, Taco Bell's has got to win the restaurant war. You know what I mean? Like the brands have to win these wars, and AI is going to make it easier for them to get eliminated or not, right? I would also say an interesting thing here is that this type of experiential marketing and experiential storytelling and either brand or audience focused, whatever we want to call it, experience design is also starting to get different buyers. So if Nike doesn't want to say yes to the money by themselves, as you and I have been talking about, real estate investors will say yes with Nike because real estate investors need their cities that they're building buildings in to have culture. And that culture needs to be differentiated on a global stage. And if they want people to be like, you know what, I want to spend $1 million on a condo in Miami, it's got to be fun to be there. And if there is universal basic income, and if there is a whole bunch of extra free time, and all these people don't manage to go into civil war or whatever the fuck it is, and we can all live with the robots and have all this extra free time, we're going to need really good and entertaining cultural reasons to live in Miami versus Chicago. And those are the types of things that brands and these other
A hundred
buyers,
percent,
real,
a hundred
yeah, you
percent.
know,
I mean, like even London has London Experience Week, and they're using
love it.
experience in the same way as 20 years ago cities used technology. Like, hey, we need a technology hub. We need to bring thought leaders to our city for this technology that they're doing the exact same thing with experience. And you're like the golden age for experiential marketing is exactly what you said: universal basic income and a bunch of free time. Oh man, are we off to the races?
Do you like skiing? Cool. Here's a bunch of different ways you can go use skiing with your time, brought to you by Windex, right? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter at that point as long as you're creating that arc and that curve for the people to associate that experience with your brand. Again, it's about the fodder and the function because all those soft KPIs are going to then be measurable. Did we get people to go on this experience? Did they have a good time? Were we able to do all the stuff we wanted to do? Again, like I'm going to speak at a conference in Saudi Arabia in April, and I'm going to be speaking on a stage about branded hospitality. And this conversation is alive on the real estate development side because they see huge success in things like the Armani Hotel or the Bugatti Hotel, right? Or now they're doing a Mercedes-Benz City because Mercedes-Benz is a global marker of luxury and nobody knows who the real estate developer is. The
Mm-hmm.
architects are great, the interior decorators are great, all the stuff is going to be awesome. But that hotel and that residence needs to have that global marker of luxury so that it can get $1 billion worth of financing. And I think what's interesting to me is what does the future generation of that look like when it no longer has to be those old world European luxury houses that do that marking? How do we have this kind of cultural development with other brands at play? Can Equinox have a wellness city? Can some of these people start to collaborate to create these physical experiential moments that feel bigger than residential or bigger than a hotel and still smaller than a Disney theme park with literal amusement park rides?
I hear you. I got to run.